Darius Snow, unfortunately, out for the whole season. Xavier Henderson out until God knows how long. But still a lot of good stuff to talk about from Friday and Monday's press conference with Mel Tucker. And we do it all with Stephen Brooks of 24/7 Sports. Let's get to it.
Are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You guys are the absolute, positively the best people that I know. Of course, I'm talking about the watchers and listeners of Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white, 5 days a week here in the Locked On Podcast Network. Yes, right next to me, as we will every week this season, we got the wonderful Stephen Brooks of 24/7 Sports to talk about all things that have happened in the last 3 days here in East Lansing. But before that, hey, please rate, review, and subscribe to this here podcast or YouTube channel. Comment below if you're watching on YouTube. Do whatever makes you happy, because in the end, that's what I care about, your happiness. Stephen, we got a lot to talk about, man. But before we get to any of that, how are you doing? No one ever asked how Stephen Brooks is doing. How are you doing, man? You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody cares about how I'm doing when they turn on this podcast right now. They want they've got some things on their mind, I think. But I am doing good, as we talked about. Saturday was awesome. I hardly moved a muscle from noon to past midnight when I was watching Michael Penix and those guys out in Washington. So I'll probably only get like one more college football game day like that during MSU's bye week. So absolutely maximized it. Had a blast.
Amen. And we got a ton to get to today. Honestly, I feel like we can make this a 4.5 hour show, but I somewhat respect your time, so we're going to limit it to about a half hour-ish.
All right.
A lot of good stuff to talk about. Let's start off with the only thing that's not good, though, and it's the biggest story from Friday night's game, the story of the weekend. And if you're listening on Monday, you already know the news by now. Darius Snow, starting linebacker, is out for the season, announced by Mel Tucker at the press conference. Doesn't know the extent of the injury, but he said point blank, out for the season. Safety Xavier Henderson. Mel Tucker said he's a little sore and was a little waffling on is he going to have surgery? Is he not? So we'll get to him a little bit. But let's start with Darius Snow right now. Your instant reaction to his injury and him being out for the season. I know it's a really broad question to start with, but what goes through your head as you say or see MSU starting linebacker gone for the whole year?
Yeah, I can't help but go right to the human element, man. I mean, I just feel bad for the kid. Right. So we were over there all August and honestly saw a lot of people, not all of them were reported and, for reasons, but a lot of people in red jerseys, a lot of people in no jerseys, no pads. Okay. There was there was quite a few people nicked up during camp. I don't think Snow was ever in that group once, so was very fortunate, I believe, as far as I know, to stay healthy all throughout camp, which seemed to be very physical, very taxing on a lot of guys. He made it through, sort of the heat there at a new position, grinded his tail off at this new position, put himself in a position to be a day one starter, and then doesn't even make it a half, and now he's out. So you just feel awful for the kid. He is probably, honestly, the smartest player I've covered at this level. Not just knowing what he's doing and can explain it to a T, but the entire defense and what the offense is trying to do to him. I mean, there's a lot of smart kids out there, and I've covered a lot of them at Michigan State and elsewhere, but he's on the short list of the smartest. I mean, that kid knows football. He knows what he's talking about. And so you lose that, of course. I think he's a good leader for him. He's just a good football player, of course. We'll talk about on the field, but yeah, I do feel bad for the kid. And, we don't root for players and this and that and in my position and all that, but it definitely sucks to see something like that. I know that he worked really hard to get in position to be where he was. And, maybe it wasn't the easiest road. Maybe he didn't necessarily see himself in that position. Yeah. But I thought he was going to do a lot of good things this year, and I still do in the future. So, hopefully his recovery is as smooth as possible. But definitely sort of an emotional letdown, I think, for the guys to see somebody like that go down. And then on the field, maybe as much as I say that, maybe not the biggest loss just because it is one of the deepest positions. Right. Even within that depth, you don't have another Darius Snow. And I understand that he was kind of a unique one within that depth that we've all been praising all year. But I do think you can get by, with an Aaron Brule taking on more snaps, with Cal Halliday just playing more snaps. We know he can hold up in there. Ben Van Sumeren, I think, was one of the standouts of Friday's game. You got to feel good about where he's at and what he's bringing to that position. Didn't even see Ma now Toyote, but he's an option there. So, sure. And then, of course, everyone's favorite, Jacoby Windmon. He can also play linebacker, you might have heard. So there's enough people there to get them by, I think. And so in terms of personnel, I think Xavier Henderson is actually a much bigger loss, short term or long term, however that goes. In terms of missing him on the field, but both of them, and X is a lot of the same things I just said about Snow apply to X in terms of very, very smart. And X is a tremendous communicator. Like he's the table setter back there. He gets everybody lined up. He makes, everybody's making calls, but like it's his voice that people are really listening for. So yeah, definitely. I think in terms of football wise on the field, how do we get past this? If you're Michigan State, he's a bigger loss, but you can't discount the loss of Snow either. I mean, he was going to be a big time player for them this year, I think.
Yeah, and like both guys are fan favorites, obviously amongst the fan base, but not just that, but seemingly amongst his own team too. Like Henderson, captain every game last year, he's the heartbeat of that defense. Or okay, maybe Henderson isn't the heartbeat of the defense. Okay, well it was Snow. Like it was either one of those two guys right there. So that's the unfortunate part, obviously. And you just brought it up too with Snow, the position group he's in with linebacker. Silver lining is the worst term to put on it. So the way I'm going to put it is like I'm in the bargaining stage of grief right now, and I have bargained to the point where it's like the linebacker room is still pretty talented. Of course, you never want to lose a starter. You don't want to lose any depth, all that good stuff. But who do you think takes over for Snow? Is it a definitive, it's definitely going to be Aaron Brule? Is it going to be a little campaign action with Halliday, Brule? Like, how do you dissect who steps up for Darius Snow moving forward?
I would think right now that Cal slips into the starting spot because I think he definitely played the second most snaps, the other night. So I think initially it'll be Cal Halliday and Ben Van Sumeren, but I do expect a lot of Aaron Brule in there. And Brule impressed me. I want to see more of him. I wouldn't be opposed to him starting out there. I'm just saying what I think probably will happen initially. But I need to see a lot more of that guy because that spin move that he had off the edge was one of the handful of plays of the night. Yeah. There was a time that, a couple of times, one or two, maybe three, they sent Brule and Windmon together off the edge, and that was a scary sight. And there was 3, 4, 5 times they had Aaron Brule out on the perimeter, like past the hash marks, manned up on wide receivers, not tight ends or backs, but out. He was out there playing man coverage on a wide receiver in space, and they were comfortable enough to do that, 2, 3, 4 times that I can remember. I got to go do my full rewatch probably right after this. Actually, I got to make some other calls and everything, but I'm going to do that, and that's going to be something I'm noting that they put him out there on an island. He was lined up basically like a corner, folks. Go back and look at it a couple of times. That says a lot, and he flashed in the spring game. That's really when I thought about Aaron Brule coming out of spring or the open practice. It was his quickness in those zone drops and the fluidity and just how much better he looked at that second level covering passes than they looked a year ago. So there's a whole lot about Aaron Brule I want to see a lot more of. I do think initially probably Cal gets that first look, but it's going to be by committee, just much like it was when Snow was even when Snow was healthy, they were going to rotate in there almost like D-line type of reps just because they have the guys. And each of them brings a little bit something different to the table. So I don't think it'll look drastically different, but I am very curious about what Aaron Brule can do as we move forward here.
And that was a big part of my bargaining stage too, is that, hey, Brule is like a solid, if not pretty great cover guy as a linebacker too, especially. So that helps a little bit come to terms with what's going on at the linebacker situation, but kind of a different-ish story with safety. Xavier Henderson goes out. Yes, Kendall Brooks did step up as well. Mangum also got a few snaps at safety as well. Kendall Brooks is probably the guy to step up, right? Or do you think Mangum showed enough to not just get fans excited, but maybe even the coaching staff saying, you know what, hey, true freshman, now's your time to shine, baby?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect him to step right in there as the starter for X. I do think it'll be Kendall Brooks. And Mangum has practiced more as the free. He's traditionally more of Gross's backup. Not that he can't do it. Obviously, he literally just did the other day. Sure. But Kendall Brooks has more of those reps and more of that seasoning at that specific position. Another name Mel Tucker mentioned today that I hadn't really considered is Justin White. He said they've had him in their back pocket as an emergency safety guy, gotten some reps here and there. He's mostly been playing at nickel, but I do think that this week for sure he's going to be getting some more true safety reps just in case. Or maybe it's not just in case. Maybe he through the week shows that he is the guy or the number 2 guy. Maybe Mangum's just not quite ready yet. for live action. And the problem there is, of course, none of those guys really have much experience. Okay, Kendall Brooks played a little bit at D2, North Greenville, or wherever the heck he came from. Mangum's never played before. Justin White's played a little bit here and there and also came from a lower level. But realistically, we're not talking about much functional experience at all in that two deep. So that's a concern. And, you know, Akron looks objectively awful last week. There's no other way to put it, but
not good.
But Joe Moorhead in that system, you know, with all the RPOs they run and just all the creative ways that they can stress a defense, like that's going to be a team. They're not that talented. They're not that well put together yet, but just schematically, they're going to put some pressure, I think, on Michigan State safeties to make decisions, make reads, be reliable in the run game to fill those alleys and everything. So don't get me wrong, folks. I don't expect Michigan State to struggle here, but I do think there could be some stressful moments for some young safeties in there. So that's something to watch for sure. And look, I mean, you don't get experience till you get experience, and these guys are going to get some experience, and we'll see where they go. I'm not saying that they're bad players. I'm just saying that they haven't proven anything at this level, and so now's the time to see it. I mean, Kendall Brooks has the egregious late hit and then makes up for it with just a textbook freaking tackle and pops the ball loose. I mean, that was coaching clinic video quality stuff right there.
Yeah,
so,
it was.
And that's kind of what he's known for, as being a hitter. So maybe he can bring his own little element to it and everything. So definitely a position to watch there. Bigger concern near term and long term, I think, with that one. And just to your point at the very top, if folks are still getting into in-season mode, maybe forgot a little bit, sore is Mel Tucker's code word for they're injured. And that means, you know, I tip my cap, honestly, to Mel today for telling us about Darius and that he's just off the board. And we really appreciate that. And it's just better to have that out of the way. With X, he obviously did not do that. He said he's sore. He'll be ready when he's ready. That's the canned answer whenever somebody's hurt. So I definitely don't expect to see him Saturday. Probably not for many Saturdays, but the takeaway there is that he's not necessarily gone for the year.
Gotcha. Well, lends some ray of sunshine, I guess we'll call it. Maybe that he could come back this year. Now, how long down the road that is, we might never know until we actually see him on the field. But yeah, no, the Kendall Brooks late hit and then awesome play not long after. I call that the Chuck Brantley. Is where you have an egregious late hit or a targeting or what should have been a targeting followed with an incredible play later on, or be the next game because you're suspended for the rest of that one. Later that game was just a late hit. So yeah,
can I suggest the defensive Connor Cook maybe?
Get some legs on that one.
Yeah, well, how about defensive Connor Cook?
Hey, now I like that one. Any way you slice it, I'll take that one too. That's great. I love that. Man, okay, we got to talk to you, but Steven, I just got to say goodbye to you for a hot second because, folks, we got a new one. You have not heard me talking about this yet, but we will all fall because, hey, fun while watching college football, some NFL, if you will. When golf comes back, yeah, that's right, Underdog is going to have you covered. I will tell you about the easiest and most fun way to spice up your season. It's Underdog Fantasy and their pick'em game for college football. Just look at your favorite Spartans, look at their stats, pick whether you think they'll end up with higher or lower than that number in this week's game, and you could win up to 3 times your money in a single night. 20 times your cash in a single night. Underdog keeps it super simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. It is tremendously easy to use. Go find out for yourself. Just pick 2 and 5 players for your pick'em slip. All your picks right, bada boom, bada bing. You will take home some cold, hard cash. It's simple to get started. Head to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the awesome app. Sign up with promo code LOCKEDON. That's 2 words, locked and then on. And Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's right. Deposit $1 for free. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code LOCKEDON. Go yourself some money. Let's go. And as we welcome back the wonderful Stephen Brooks of 24/7 Sports, I just want to thank you all for making Locked On Spartans every single Locked On Podcast Network. Stephen, let's talk about some happy things right now. Jacoby of the week in the Big Ten. He also won the Walter Camp Defensive Player of the Week nationally and stuff like that. Look, it's easy to say that obviously he was the best player on the field, but specifically really wowed you the most up from your cushy little press box. Steven. That's right.
Oh yeah, it's so luxurious up there, as you know, from years gone by. No, I mean just look, he's done that before. Obviously, he spent his first 2 years at UNLV as a defensive end, but just the smoothness that he translated back to it with. I mean, of course, he's been doing it in practice some, and I think they definitely ratcheted that up as camp went along. I don't know the exact point where he sort of made the full swap and it was more defensive end than linebacker, and not just a little bit of both or whatever. But I started hearing about a week before the game, look, not only is Windmon going to play there, but he might be our best defensive end. That is what I was hearing. So I was like, that's interesting. That's notable.
Yeah.
And then so I wasn't surprised at all to see him play in that spot, but to play it the whole game and play it as well as he did, my gosh. And just I was I don't think I was alone, but I was saying BT Jordan, as great as he is, you're going to see it years from now probably, in the recruiting, but also just, the reps, the muscle memory and all that. We saw it right away. Whether it was Windmon, of course, was doing some stuff that's just high level, advanced technique stuff with his hands and his, dip and rip type of stuff, or everybody else though. I mean, you saw Petrowski out there with the hand combat type of stuff, and all these other dudes, just it looked different. And so that was impressive to see. Just Windmon did the consistency. He was basically living in their backfield, and Bogle's sack you could almost give to Windmon, because he kind of set that up and let Bogle slide right off and make the play. There's the football coaches say all the time, you can just because you make the tackle, everyone's going to call your name and you'll be on the stat sheet, but there are people who make the plays by, taking on the blocker or spilling something outside or whatever it might be. Windmon made the play there. Bogle made the tackle. And so he gets the stat, he gets the sack and everything, and everyone's happy. But and I should say Bogle looked really good, I thought, especially that first half. I wasn't expecting him to look that good, to be quite honest, because this is a new deal for him. I know people see he comes from Florida, he's got good size and this and that, but being a four-man front defensive end and asking and doing what he's being asked to do here is new to him. He did not do that at Florida. So just because of his pedigree, did not make that a hand in glove thing. Like, oh, he's just going to come here and take off. Like, no, he's learning a lot of these things for the first time, as an older college guy. So I thought that was promising to see, though, is him as well. So, yeah, Windmon, just the consistency of it. I mean, it was the first quarter. It was the fourth quarter. Yeah. It was relentless, I guess you could say.
Hey, now look at that. Mel Tucker buzzword. I like that. He's going to send you a check in the mail after dropping that one right there.
Yeah, I could use it.
It's easy to point out the MVP, obviously, right? Jacoby Windmon, probably the unanimous choice. I don't know anyone that's going to pick against him for MVP, but debate to be had over the second best player on Friday. Who falls in second place, not just on defense, but maybe if there's an offensive player that really wowed you as well. Or is it going to be as easy as what your colleague Corey Robinson said, Ben Van Zoomeran, the guy who led the team in tackles? Or is it someone else? Because there's a lot of debate to be had about a lot of guys here for second MVP.
It is. I mean, let's just go through. I mean, I think Jalen Berger probably rises to the top of my mind.
Love what I saw from him.
He was really, really impressive, I thought. I mean, I don't remember him being that electric at Wisconsin. I remember more of sort of a stiff, straight line type of guy with some power to him. He was juking and jitting all over there, man. I mean, I liked what I saw from him. Ben Van Zoomeran got to be on that short list for sure. I mean, my gosh, what did this dude do in the offseason? Because he did not look like that last year physically. Oh, I mean, right. Yeah, he came in, pumped up and was real sort of boxy and just looked like he would have competed, with Max Bulla for the job, in 2013, 2012, 2011. Sure. That's what he looked like. Friday night, he looked like a linebacker from 2022. I mean, he was out there sideline to sideline, making plays in space, breaking down, getting ball carriers in space. I mean, the quickness and the elusiveness that he was showing was really impressive. And that's not at all what we saw from him last year. He just moved different. I mean, that was hats off to him. And when you go back and look at it, he was winning a lot of those belts and those competitions that they were doing in the weight room that they put on social media. On Friday, they have like their champion of this, champion of that. I mean, he was racking them up. So I guess we really shouldn't have been surprised. I was hearing good things about him wire to wire in camp, even going back to spring ball a little bit. And man, he had a great night. And I got to mention Kean Coleman. I thought he played pretty good too. And folks might know that I'm fairly high on him this season.
How can he not be? How can he not be? Anytime he's in single coverage, like we've all seen the meme last year. It was picture of Peyton Thorne. It's like, oh, F it, Reed down there somewhere, and he just slings the ball. And look, obviously Jaden Reed's still an awesome player. He's going to be a great player. But anytime Coleman is in single coverage, sling that ball anywhere around him. Like that is going to be a play that works more times than it doesn't. And we saw it work twice.
Credit to our friend Colton Pouncey on that one. And I heard that training camp was a lot of that. A lot of epic Keon's down there somewhere. And sure enough, there he is making a play. There was a lot of that going on in August, from what I understand.
Now, okay, so we talked about Van Zoomeran. He was a surprise starter, right? For like at least to me, he was a surprise starter. I know, just like what you said, you heard a lot about how he was doing in spring ball and the off season, but I also started to think about. We also just heard about Davion Prim, and now he's not even on offense anymore. So is this more coach speak? Okay, the evidence says that no, that wasn't just coach speak. That was the cold hard truth. But also, Brandon Baldwin gets a start as well. Chuck Brantley gets a start at cornerback as well. So let's talk about the guys that Brandon Baldwin and Chuck Brantley started over, which is Jarrett Horst, of course, and then Ronald Williams. Was that just a straight-up position battle win? Are they one of the people that were wearing the red jerseys and could be some injury issues there? Or how do you dissect the whole Brandon Baldwin starting over Jarrett Horst and also Chuck Brantley starting over Ronald Williams?
I'll start with Chuck. I think Chuck was more just won the job. Okay. Now, Ronald was in red a little bit during camp, in and out, when we were over there, and but he was never like fully out. That I can recall, like sideline, jogging to himself. He wasn't that. He was just like red jersey for a little bit or things like this. So I know he wasn't 100% all the way in August. I don't know the extent of it, but from what I know, that Chuck just won that spot for that week. So we'll see if he can hold on to it. I thought he played pretty well. I know they threw at him a lot, but you're probably going to throw at the 5'10", 150-pound guy more than the 6'3", 200-pound guy on the other side. Just naturally, but I think he just won that one. We saw Ronald out there. He did play, I think, like one series, though, and then special teams. So that's just something to watch. I think there will be competition there. I don't think it's head and shoulders or anything like that. I think they'll continue to compete. With left tackle, I don't think Horst was 100%, able to give them 100% necessarily. So it just sort of made sense. And you saw him get in there later, and he gave what he could and all that. But just another one, I guess, to watch for sure, because I think at his best, at his healthiest, he is their best tackle. Mm-hmm. But I want to give Brandon Baldwin his props, though. I mean, he was much better than I thought he would. When I saw, and I heard a little bit about this. When I saw him go out there for their first snap, I was like, "Ooh, man, this could be uncomfortable here." If this doesn't all come together, and you really didn't see him, the spotlight didn't go on him, which, as we all know, is a good thing. Like it was never like, oh my gosh, he's getting whipped over there. Right. He just blew that huge play on 3rd and long or whatever. It was nothing like that. He held up pretty good. He's going to be another guy I watched really, really close on my rewatch. But I thought for a first start, first game action at this level, that dude played pretty admirably. I thought Brian Green came off the bench and actually looked pretty good. And he's a little bit smaller than some of their starting guards and even some of their backup guards, but. Man, he plays hard. He plays low. You can tell he's strong. He gets good push in there. So I think he's going to be an asset. As a collective, I'm still, very, very much wait and see with the offensive line as a whole. Yeah, we still got to see. I got to see him do it against, a Power 5 team and not a better front than they're going to see there. But all in all, some promising things. I think Brandon Baldwin, just finishing up on him, he probably doesn't look that good if he's not just, getting the fire hose worth of reps back in spring ball when they only had like 3.5 guys healthy or whatever it was. It was like 7 or 8, honestly. But he was out there nonstop, and got all the reps he could handle against some good players, on that D line. And I think you're seeing that come to fruition. And that's kind of, that it was spin and it was silver lining at the time, but it did come true now, like where you've really kind of move forward his development on the timeline. He's going to be much sooner functional for game ready type of stuff than it would have seemed, at the start of spring ball. So we'll have to continue to watch and monitor it there, I think. But at least in week 1, I think Baldwin did a good job, and there's a lot to build on there. And when Horst is able to get back in there at his best, then that's obviously better for them, because we've talked many, many times about how there's no depth at tackle. Starting to work on a little depth at tackle.
That was nice too. And yeah, obviously you want to see a larger sample size. And yes, it was against Western Michigan. But also at the same time, like that's a Western Michigan team that returned both of their edge guys from last year on a pretty good defense too. I think a lot of people don't understand, like, Western has one of the best defenses in the MAC, if not maybe the best coming up. And that's why after the game Friday, like I was fine. I was like, that was a good game. You covered the spread. You did everything you're supposed to do on defense. Offense was hit and miss a little bit, but overall took a lot of positives away from it. But I'm just one idiot with a microphone, Steven. Mel Tucker, the head coach that's making $95 million to coach at Michigan State over the next 10 years, at the press conference today on Monday said, quote, "Our play was unacceptable." So, break the tie here for us, Steven. Did you think that Friday's game was a fine performance, or is there a reason to believe that Mel Tucker is saying that it was unacceptable the way they played on Friday? I can't help but to laugh at unacceptable. That seems a little harsh. It's not like they lost by 40 points, but anyway, I digress. He's the coach. He's the man in charge. He's got to say that sort of stuff.
Right. And this is the guy that said that 11-2 was nothing last year, and the Peach Bowl said it at Big Ten Media Day. We did nothing last year, so that tells you where he's coming from, though, and where his standards are, and probably says something about what he thinks this team could be. I mean, you kind of got to look through the magnifying glass sometime to really see where Tucker's head's at, and I think that does say something about what he thinks this team could be. Maybe he's just trying to drag more out of them. Look, I don't think anybody was happy to see it being a one-possession game in the second half. It did get a little tight there, but then again, on the other side, you saw some of that resilience that honestly characterized last year's team. As much as I'm sick of hearing keep chopping already, like that was a tenet of last year's team, and that showed up a little bit again this year already. When it got to one possession, it got tight. The offense had slowed down a little bit. They figured some things out. Berger busts out of there and runs off a 50-yard or whatever, and then they're all good again. So I don't think it wasn't awful and disgusting and abysmal and all in all. It could have been better, because they, as everybody said, they all left some plays out there. The offensive line, the defense, the receivers. Peyton Thorne probably number one. He was not as sharp as anybody I think would have hoped in game one. Throwing 50% of his balls, at Western. So, in fairness, they were coming after him pretty hard and sending a lot of pressure his way. And I think that tells you a lot about probably what other teams think of their offensive line. I can say it as much as I can. I'm sure people are sick of me here, sick of hearing it from me or other media or whatever. But the way Western was just throwing bodies and blitzers at them, I think probably shows you that they thought they could spring a leak there. So. They held up, though. They did what they needed to do. Peyton Thorne, as inconsistent as he was, connected on some huge plays. So, and we saw some of those receivers just pass catchers, I'm going to say, show off their natural talent. I mean, Daniel Barker, that was just almost just too smooth. I'm just like, my gosh, man, you don't have to do it like that. Oh, my God. It's just like save a little juice. Come on. That was a really impressive catch. Keon goes up there and just, does the astronaut thing and outbodies him. And then Jeremy Bernard just catch and whoop, he's gone. You see what the hype's about with him too. So the pass catchers remain very, very attractive and the strongest part, I think, of this offense. And that's going to be something to watch moving forward. I think they're going to have a lot of opportunities this week because Akron needs some work, we'll say.
I want to get to that game here in a hot second, but there's just one other takeaway I had from the press conference today. And he actually talked about the players cramping on the field and said that, I think it was something along the lines of, I can't think of a single reason why we should be cramping on a fall Friday night in East Lansing. Steven, is Michigan State going to be the most hydrated team in the nation coming up this Saturday? Are they going to just be peeing clear the entire week from right now until Saturday? I know that might be the biggest storyline coming up in this weekend's game. That's how bad Akron is.
He said,
I was saying, that question if you don't want to.
No, implement the Miami playbook. Break the glass and bring that one back out of the case and run that back. And then all keep chopping references are now keep chugging this week. Actually, new signage all up in the building. Yeah.
I need a tailgating shirt that says that. That's what we need right there. I'm gonna make some calls. We're gonna see if we can get that. It was a nice little Locked On Spartans patch on the sleeve right there. No, look, Akron struggled against FCS opponent St. Francis. They were 18-point favorites, and it took overtime for them to beat them. And this isn't even an FCS team that's like good, like North Dakota State or anything like. No. St. Francis isn't even good for FCS standards, and they still really struggled with them. So Is there any takeaways we could have from this weekend? This is just a live scrimmage, right? Unless, because even if, okay, Thorne does really well, he bounces back. Okay, like, kind of supposed to do that against the Zips. Or is that it? Is that just like if anything negative happens, then we could start panicking? I guess I don't really know what I'm asking. What are you looking for in this Akron game? Because
no, I know you're
playing East Lansing High School. I think I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not good.
I think the only thing that you could take away from this game, that you'll be able to take away, is like if it's like just glaringly, egregiously bad, somehow.
Sure.
I mean, if it's 14-14 at halftime, like that's not good. But I don't expect that. It would have to be like just so obviously bad, or if something's going wrong, you go, whoa. Other than that, they're probably going to route. They're probably going to route them. Everyone's probably going to look good. They're probably going to play a lot of players. And it should just be all thumbs up and smiles this weekend, to be honest.
Yeah.
The one thing is, like I mentioned earlier, Joe Moorhead is a really, really good offensive coach. They will, I think, at times maybe. I mean, we're not talking busts for big plays, but busts for first downs maybe, because they can put you in a bind, especially if you've got some inexperienced safeties. It's two things. It's the RPOs that put you in conflict, make you make a decision, and make you make the right one, make you make plays in space. But it's also tempo is one thing that they will go very, very fast. And so, that can create mistakes on the defensive end when you're thinking and you're having to think very, very fast, and they're snapping the ball. Maybe they could break off a decent little run possession here. Maybe they get some, a score or two, whatever. But that's where I think the trouble would be, trouble with quotes, was with the tempo and the RPOs. Maybe just they get a break here or two and spring something, but all in all, for 60 minutes, they're not even going to be remotely close.
Right, like even if the score is 56-10, I don't know if I'm going to walk away being like, "Oh, we have the best running game in the nation." Like, it's just what you're supposed to do,
Right. They're both MAC teams, but Western, I think, would beat Akron by 3 touchdowns easily. In Michigan State, obviously. So yeah, these are not the same thing.
No, honestly, and that just bodes to how great of a test Washington's going to be the week after. Like that is going to be the litmus test to see what we can really think about this team moving forward. Obviously, hey, look, a lot to think about highly of with this team, but I just don't know if Saturday's going to be even somewhat of a test to really indicate what the season's going to bode for us. Unless, again, like 2 more guys go down with an injury. Like that's the obvious one, though. So other than that, should be a laugher. Knock on wood there. I don't want to jinx anything to oblivion. So there you have it. Well, Steven, what an eventful start to week 2 we have here. I knew we had stuff to talk about after the first game, obviously, but holy smokes, this was a lot, man. And hey, can't thank you enough for hopping on the show here, lending some of your time, your insight, your knowledge, your handsome looks, all the above on Locked On Spartans. You're the best, Steven. God, you're the man. Do you know you're the man? I hope you know you're the man, Steven.
No, I'm not. Oh, I'm definitely not. But I appreciate the opportunity to step on here for you with a couple minutes each week, and hopefully spill out a semi-coherent thought here or there, and make people's listen worth it. So appreciate you, man. I'll see you next week, right?
I'm afraid so. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Chicago. So if I don't survive Chicago somehow, then maybe not. But I plan on it. I plan on surviving it. So
tentatively, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, pencil me in. Don't sharpen me in. Pencil me in for next week, because if I'm not here, then I'm just going to flip you the password and everything, how to upload the show and whatnot. And
boom.
This thing is
Folks,
yours.
You should hear what the host gets paid. The guest gets a decent little, something, but you should hear what the host makes. I can't wait to say that.
Company car every month. We get to choose our make, model, and the trunk is always filled with Built Bars. It's great. It's awesome. You cannot beat the perks here at the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, you guys are also the best. Thank you so much for making us your first watch or first listen every single day. We'll be back tomorrow. We have the one and only Greg Jones on MSU Athletics Hall of Fame weekend. Let's talk about his career, what this weekend's going to be like for him. And until then, hey, you guys are the best. Stay awesome. Love you all. Go green. Woo!